There was a time when thinking had a purpose. It appeared when something needed attention and disappeared when it didn't. Now, thinking doesn't arrive. It stays. The mind no longer waits for a reason to activate. It remains alert by default, as if something important might happen the moment it relaxes. Even in silence. Even at rest. Even when nothing is required. This constant mental activity doesn't feel dramatic. It feels normal. And that's what makes it difficult to notice. Because when thinking never turns off, the mind forgets that it was ever meant to. There was a time when thinking arrived only when it was needed. It showed up in response to something concrete, a decision to make, a situation to understand, a problem that required attention. Once that demand was resolved, thinking naturally faded into the background, making space for presence, sensation, and silence. The mind did not linger unnecessarily. It responded, then rested. In that state, thought was not a constant companion. It was a tool. Something picked up when useful and set down without effort. Silence was not empty, and stillness was not suspicious. Awareness could soften without the fear of missing something important. The mind trusted that if something required attention, it would announce itself. This distinction matters, because it shows that constant thinking is not the mind's original condition. It is not the default state of human awareness. It is something that developed later, quietly, gradually, without anyone stopping to ask what might be lost in the process. From response to permanence. At some point, thinking stopped waiting for a reason. It began running continuously, scanning for relevance even when none was present. Thoughts no longer arrived in response to the world, they stayed active in anticipation of it. The mind shifted from responding to situations to preparing for possibilities that might never come. This change did not feel alarming. In fact, it felt useful. Being mentally active seemed responsible, intelligent, even mature. Thinking ahead was praised. Being alert was rewarded. And slowly, without resistance, the mind learned that disengaging was no longer expected. Over time, thinking stopped feeling like something you did and started feeling like something that simply happened. The absence of thought began to feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, as if awareness without commentary was incomplete or unsafe. The original rhythm of the mind. Originally, the mind followed the rhythm of the environment. Activity had edges. Attention had a beginning and an end. There were clear moments when engagement was required and equally clear moments when it was not. The mind learned when to focus and when to release because the world around it provided those signals naturally. When daylight faded, effort faded with it. When activity ended, awareness softened. Silence was not something to manage or fill, it was simply part of the rhythm. The mind trusted these transitions because they were consistent and visible. This rhythm did not require discipline or effort. It required alignment. And when alignment existed, thinking did not need to stay active on its own. It knew when to step back. How attention used to disengage. Disengagement was once automatic. The mind did not have to be instructed to relax. It recognized closure through subtle cues, changes in light, sound, social activity, and physical movement. These cues told the nervous system that vigilance was no longer required. Because these signals were reliable, the mind did not fear disengagement. Letting go of thought did not feel like a risk. It felt appropriate, natural, safe. When disengagement is supported externally, the mind does not need to police itself internally. It rests because it knows it can. The world that never turns off. That external support slowly disappeared. The environment stopped offering clear endings. Information became continuous. Activity became endless. There was always something else to check, consider, or respond to even when nothing demanded immediate action. Days lost their edges. Nights lost their finality. Silence became rare, and when it did appear, it no longer meant closure. The world stayed partially on at all times. Faced with an environment that never fully disengages, the mind adapts. It stays alert not out of fear, but out of necessity. If the world never rests, the mind assumes it shouldn't either. The loss of off signals. Without clear signals that something has ended, the mind never receives confirmation that it can stand down. There is no moment that definitively says, "This is finished, you are safe to disengage now." In the absence of those signals, alertness becomes the default state. Not because something is wrong, but because something is unresolved. The mind remains active simply because it does not know when stopping is appropriate. This is not anxiety in the traditional sense. It is uncertainty. And uncertainty keeps awareness running, alert without threat. This constant alertness is subtle. It doesn't feel like panic or fear. It feels like readiness without direction. The body may be still, but the mind remains slightly leaned forward, waiting for the next cue. Thoughts continue not because they are useful, but because silence no longer feels complete on its own. The mind fills space automatically, just in case something important needs to be processed. Over time, this state becomes familiar. And familiarity is often mistaken for normality. Why silence no longer quiets thought? Silence once communicated safety. It told the mind that nothing demanded attention. But when silence appears without closure, it loses that meaning. It becomes an empty space rather than a resting place. The mind responds to emptiness by filling it. Thoughts emerge not to solve problems, but to maintain engagement. Silence is no longer an invitation to rest, it is interpreted as missing information. This is why thinking speeds up when everything slows down. Thinking is background noise. Eventually, constant thinking fades into the background. It becomes a steady hum rather than a noticeable activity. People stop questioning it because it has always been there, at least as long as they can remember. In this state, the absence of thought feels strange. Quiet awareness feels incomplete. The mind no longer remembers what it was like to exist without commentary. And so thinking continues, not because it is needed, but because it has become familiar. The myth of constant awareness. Modern culture reinforces this pattern. Awareness is framed as productivity. Alertness is associated with responsibility. Constant thinking is mistaken for engagement and intelligence. Stillness, on the other hand, is framed as wasteful, unproductive, even dangerous. The idea of not thinking is quietly discouraged. In this environment, the mind learns that staying on is the safest option, when always on feels normal. Over time, people stop noticing the strain. The discomfort becomes subtle, then invisible. Mental activity is no longer questioned, it is assumed. This is how a temporary adaptation becomes a permanent condition. The mind adjusts, but adjustment does not equal balance. Something essential is missing, but it is difficult to name. Reframing without fixing. This constant thinking is not a personal failure. It is not a lack of discipline or willpower. It is a logical response to an environment that does not provide clear signals for disengagement. Understanding this shifts the question from what's wrong with me to what changed around me. And that shift alone removes a significant amount of internal pressure. What always on really means. Being always alert does not mean being attentive. It means being unresolved. The mind is not malfunctioning, it is waiting for clarity that no longer arrives. Thinking continues because it has no clear endpoint. It stays active not out of necessity, but out of uncertainty. This reframes the entire experience. Maybe your mind is not overactive. Maybe it simply never received permission to disengage. If this reflection felt familiar, you're not alone. And if you want to continue exploring these quiet shifts in how the mind works, consider subscribing. Understanding change is more than trying to control.